This is Sportish.
Do it better.
This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish. This is Sportish.
This is Sportish. Welcome in, everybody. Geoff Brault, Dr. Keith Strudler, runs the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University. We're so glad that you're joining us as the sports dead period comes to its conclusion. We don't know when you're joining us. Last week, Keith Strudler made a very bold prediction that we'd be on at noon. And Keith, how did that work out for you when you flipped on For the Fans at noon on Thursday?
Well, I may have meant noon Central Time. I may have gotten my timing wrong. And actually, that wouldn't have worked out either. Whatever is to the right of us, I believe that's an ocean. Maybe there's got to be a Canadian province that veers into the next.
Yeah, it's Atlantic time. Atlantic time is the one to the right of us.
And that's not a lot of people in that. Yeah, I missed that one. I was off by a standard deviation. That's the fun of this show. And by the way, here's my theory. If you believe in something, you've got to stay confident. I believed at that particular time that we were going to be on at noon. There was no reason for me to not exude confidence. I think confidence breeds confidence in your coworkers. So I want you to feel confident about how the show's going. But that's the fun of the show. If you find it, it's like a prize, like it's a secret surprise. And so we will try to get it up on social, obviously, before. I just need to figure that out. But I was wrong. It happens occasionally. But now you're here. You're with us. Welcome to the program.
Yeah. Some places you can always find us is at ftfnext.com, archived episodes. And wherever you get your podcasts. On Thursday at some point, usually around noon, we'll upload the audio. So you can find us there. And there's a whole back catalog now. Like, look, you got options. I mean, you can go back almost 70 episodes now and find something to wet your whistle. So there's really no excuses, even if you don't catch us live on For the Fans, even though, that's a great place to see us. Let's place bets, Keith. Let's place bets. What time will we air this week?
I'm going with 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday. How does that sound?
Okay. I'll take noon. I was going to take whichever one you did. And if you took noon, I would take 11. You're taking 11. I'm going to take noon. If we're both wrong, by the way, we have to send a tersely worded email to somebody.
To whom it may concern.
Also, and I feel like now's a good time to address the third member of our crew, which is the audience of one that we broadcast to. And that is the person that inserts the commercials into every one of our episodes, who we've never met, but who we know is reliably the only person that has experienced every episode of this show. Now is a perfect moment, nameless sir or madam, for you to mess with us and slot us in at like 2 p.m. or 4 a.m.
That's true.
This is your moment. This is your time.
Yep. That's exact 3 a.m. Yep. There's all sorts of places. A lot of places in the dial that they could throw us in. But we're going to get a regular spot. Of course, it is just like it's the dead season for sports. It's kind of the dead season for everything. And so, if you're with us, we know we're a big hit with the college kids. We know that. Yeah. And so obviously when they come back into session, hit the dorm rooms again, because as we've pointed out, the pandemic is long behind us. When they get back and they start doing their thing and partying it up and want to have some entertainment in the background, we'll be there for them. So it's the dead season. It is what it is, but we are so excited you've joined us. There's a lot to talk about this week.
I mean, a lot of things are on hiatus right now, right? Whether it's baseball for the All-Star game or just sports because seasons are over. A lot of shows like ours take this time of the year off, but not us. We right now are the Cal Ripken of sports television shows. We are the Iron Men of sports punditry. Keith, what do you think it would take for us to not do Sportish one week? We were close last week. I had some thunderstorm power and internet issues last week that almost derailed our taping, but we powered through those.
So I think there's
Mother Nature, not even an act of God could stop Sportish.
So I think that the number one thing that would have to happen for Sportish to get on air is for Jay Friedman to die, because Jay Friedman is literally waiting in the wings for one or potentially both of us, because I'm sure he has a plan for that to go down. He sent me a text a fair amount of time ago. Actually, I haven't responded yet, asking what kind of light kit he needed. That was an indication that there was a plan in the works. So that's B, I think, well, it almost happened as well because, as I think I told you, I was chased by a bear in the woods a couple of weeks ago. So I think if the bear had won that, I'm pretty speedy. If the bear had won that battle and eliminated one or more of my limbs, that may have been. Although you can light a hospital room's lit very well. A hospital room is lit very well.
This actually brings me to an important question. Do you believe you could outrun a bear? Because you just sort of alluded to it in that response. You're like, I am very speedy. Like, he couldn't catch me. Do you think you could outrun a bear?
Well, I'm assuming it's a mama bear because there were some cubs. So that's the problem. You see the cubs and your first instinct is like, oh, how cute. But then it doesn't take long to be like, where there's cubs, there's going to be a mama. And so no one's ever worried about the papa bear. Papa bear is just clearly watching TV, waiting for someone to bring him some food, right? Like, where's my fish, right? It's always the mama bear that's out doing the work, watching the kids. The mama bear started running in my direction. Now, I don't know if I had moved far enough along that the mama bear decided that's good, or if the mama bear sized up my speed and said, well, he's got a slight head start and he is moving. So I don't know. You know what? That's remember the show? I think it was a Fox show where they had, was it Devin Hester?
Yeah.
And the only way he won was by kept reducing the amount that made it so it had to turn. The only thing a cheetah's not great at is turning around. So
I'm guessing by your non-answer that you actually do believe in your head that if push came to shove, you could outrun a bear.
I think it'd be tight. I think it's close. I know bears are supposed to go very fast, but here's the other thing. Who has greater incentive when I'm racing the bear or me? Sometimes it's who wants it more.
Do you know, like, so obviously you can look at me. I am not an outdoors person. I am an indoors cat. When you encounter a bear, you know what they tell you you're supposed to do, right? Have you heard this? I know.
So this is the problem, because I know it's one of two things. And the problem is they're the exact opposite. One, I have two thoughts in my head. One is you try to make yourself big and like try to scare it off.
Yep. That's what they say you're supposed to do. They say you're supposed to stand your ground, make yourself as big as possible, and try to intimidate the bear, which to me seems like the worst possible course of action.
That's a baller move. You got it. Because the other side, I thought that was one. The other is to curl up in a fetal position on the ground and like let the bear think that you're dead.
Oh, now that to me makes more sense.
But here's the problem with either of them, because my instinct is to run, which I'm sure is the absolute wrong.
I think that's the worst thing. Yeah.
You've made yourself a target at that point. It's game on. The problem is once you've gone big or small, you've committed to that. You're fully committed.
Yep. Correct. You get one choice, one time. And after that, it's in God's hands. There's no doubt about that. It's almost as dumb as, and again, now, to be fair, if you put yourself in a situation where a shark may eat you, you deserve to be eaten by a shark. However, they do say it is absolutely true. If you put yourself in a situation where a shark can eat you, that's on you. That's on you.
You've never gone in the ocean?
Yeah, not where a shark's going to swim up and get me.
A shark can get, do you understand what it's like on the East Coast of Florida? That's the shark attack capital of America.
No, if you're that far out,
you don't know.
Yes.
You watch you some Shark Week. They come up close to shore and they go for the ankle.
Then stay out of the ocean. If there's that many shark attacks, then stay out of the ocean. We've invented pools. This is a solvable problem. No matter how deep you are, no matter where they are, you're in their world. So if you get eaten by a shark, it is not the shark's fault.
Do you say the same thing about one of your greatest fear, which is, of course, is snakes in the undercarriage on the toilet?
Which happened. This happened. So we did an episode not too long ago where we ranked top 4 irrational fears, and one of mine was snake in the toilet. And then I am scrolling through a news website, and in like Ukraine or somewhere, a man on the toilet was bitten by a snake that came up from the netherworld. It has happened. They are coming for us. I feel partially responsible because I spoke this into the universe, and you better believe that I am even more vigilant now than I ever have been before.
Do you take a good look in there?
I mean, you have to. It's almost to the point where you have to do a preemptive plunging. I don't think we've gotten there yet, but believe me, I've got the stick at the ready in case I need it. But in that instance, the snake is in my domain, right? My toilet is in my castle. I'm not going into the foggy bog or wherever it is that snakes live and then hoping like, hey, don't bite me. No. If I go to the ocean, I'm in the shark's house. So I have to take some responsibility if that shark doesn't want me in its kitchen. But even if that shark does come up to me, you know what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to punch the shark in the face.
This is no different than the bear. This advice seems to be made by someone who's never encountered a wild animal. So what we're supposed to do with the bear is just stand ground and be like, I'm a huge man. I'm a bad man, bear. And with the shark, you're literally supposed to size the shark up and give him an undercut. Yep. No way. If you have the wherewithal to punch a shark, you are a bigger man than I will ever be.
I do feel like we should wrap up this discussion and get to some sports topics. But first, look, I now wonder if you and I were put in a survival situation together, right?
Not good.
Which one of us would die first? And you would think the easy choice is to say me, because I have admitted I have no survival skills. I don't like the outdoors. You are more athletic than I am. You can run faster than me. And as you know, you only have to be faster than the slowest person in the event of an animal attack. But here's why I think I would outlive you if we were stuck in a survival situation.
Why is that?
Because I know my limitations. I know all those things I just said. You would believe that you could fight the bear and therefore would lose to the bear, and I would just saunter my way out of the woods to safety.
I know you think that my hubris is my greatest my greatest weakness, and the pride always comes before the fall. I understand that. That would be the true test. That would be the true test. Do I know Icarus does fly too close to the sun, and that would be my greatest weakness. What I am quite assured of is we will never put ourselves in a situation to find that out, because we will never approach, like, we're never going to go that far into the wilderness where we're like, hey, there might be some real grizzlies out.
Oh yeah, no. If I'm ever in like the real woods and not like the trees off to the left of the 10th hole in the golf course I play, like if I'm ever in the real woods, it's because I owe some people some money and they like brought me there in the trunk of an old Lincoln Town car. Like that is the only way that I would ever find myself in the woods without making, some like horrible, first 20 minutes of a horror movie wrong turn on a dark road somewhere.
Yeah. I'm much more likely to find myself in that situation, obviously, because I'm an outdoors person. So, and interesting. Hopefully, we'll never come to that realization, but it is an interesting conundrum. Of course, tweet at us at Sportish Pod and let us know who you think would survive an animal attack.
Even if you spend a little more time outdoors and in the woods than I do, both of us, I think, are most comfortable on our couch watching sports, ridiculing other people's style. And all three of those came to a head last weekend because it was a big sports day over in England. We had Wimbledon and we had the final of Euro 2020. Oh, and quick side note, I love the fact that all of the big tournaments that were canceled because of the pandemic and are now being played in 2021 are still referring to themselves as 2020. And the only reason I can think is they didn't want to reprint the merch. Like there is no other reason than that we had already had the t-shirts made. And so we are riding with 2020.
I don't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I do not. It doesn't seem like it would be a great fix. I think they should have gone like the Big Ten did when they just made it look like an 11. They should have just or drawn a 1 through it. It seems like there were a lot of easy fixes for that. I found myself getting confused. Did you more than one time almost switch the channel and be like, oh, this is last year's? I found myself going to that quite often because it is 2021.
It took me till maybe the semifinal round to even realize. I was like, it is 2020. No, it isn't. You could tell me that it's November 2020 right now, and I'd be like, yeah, Thanksgiving feels like it's coming.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We saw, if you watch the Wimbledon men's final, shout out to Novak Djokovic. Some would say the greatest men's tennis player of all time. Others would say perhaps it's still Roger Federer. We saw during the Wimbledon final that Duchess Kate made an appearance. In a lovely long pink dress. And then we saw during Euro 2020 later that night, Duchess Kate in Wembley Stadium had made an outfit change. Keith Strudler, do you respect that being a 2 outfit day? Or because the reason the Royals go to these sporting events is to be like, hey, we're people, we're of the people, right? We're representing the culture and the customs that the folks enjoy. most folks aren't changing outfits on the tube there as they go in between center court and Wembley Stadium. Do you respect the outfit change?
Well, as someone who's been the best man at a wedding where there were multiple, because some cultural weddings have multiple outfit changes. I've kind of lived that experience before. Here's what I would respect the most. I would respect if they showed up in one outfit for the morning and they showed up in the same outfit, but it was stained to the hilt. Like it had gravy stains on it. It had all sorts of food all over it. Like it looked like it had just had a night in the private suite on Too Hot to Handle. Like it looked.
What do you think? And this is a question that I really should be asking in the final 15 minutes of the show, not the first 15 minutes. What do you think happens in the private suite of Too Hot to Handle? Do you think they're just like scarfing hot dogs with too much mustard on them? Like, why would you soil clothing in the private suite of Too Hot to Handle? Like, do you think there's a sandbox in there?
I'm just saying that on that show, that it was more of a metaphor of the kind of that it was going to get all kind of wrinkled. It was going to be doing a lot. It's all right. Continue. They should have food. By the way, I'll tell you what, and I know we're jumping. What I thought the most interesting thing when they asked all the contestants in the reunion show for Too Hot to Handle, what did you like the most about Too Hot to Handle? You have to respect Joey, because everyone was like the friends, the fraternization, the beach. Joey, the food.
Okay. I mean, that is kind of the best part. Like, part of the appeal of going on a vacation type situation where other people are coordinating the itinerary is that just food appears. Like it's all done for you. You don't have to put any thought into it. Yeah. And I think food tastes better when it's just brought to you. Like you don't have to think about what kind of food you want. You don't order it yourself. It's just like, hey, manja.
It takes all the stress away from it. So I understand that Kate was going to have to change clothes. I mean, if she didn't, it was going to be a story. But I think if she had kept the same clothes and it was all just food stains everywhere and it looked awful, she could then recant the day that she had. She could be like, well, after this, we decided to go down to the shore. We had a little fun. Then we went to a casino. I kind of lost track of time. We had a couple chili dogs. Like that, I would respect a bit more. And obviously, look, well, I guess she didn't really have anything to be sad about after the first because she didn't really have a horse in the race on the Wimbledon final. But obviously, the Euro final was a disappointing experience for the royal family. I mean, decades and decades of distraught, and they thought the trophy was truly coming home. And it didn't. It didn't come home. It went to Italy.
Well, look, I'm a big believer in sports karma and in like you sort of being able to when things need to break your way. If you as a sports loving populace act a certain way, I believe that the sports gods do not look kindly upon that and will punish you for it. And I think there was a certain element of that in the Euro final because England proved throughout the day. And first of all, starting that match at 8 p.m.
It's not good.
Big mistake. That's a big mistake.
Let me tell you what.
Needed to be a 1 p.m. start.
Let me tell you what. We used to when I was in Florida, the 3:30 starts already were probably 3:30 was already like you'd have to have a meeting, a business meeting in the morning and be like, we're going to have to pace ourselves. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, the Swamp opened early. And I'm talking about the bar, not the stadium. Like 3:30. And by the way, everyone's seen LSU football. The 8 p.m. starts. There's a reason why you can't win there at night. You can't go in. There's just too much alcohol coursing through the stadium. And so I don't know why they went in a stadium renowned for its drinking. I don't know why they decided to start. I don't get it.
You had people booing the opposing national anthem. You had people gate crashing Wembley Stadium. You had people punching children or at least teens in the concourse. Like England did everything you could possibly do to make the sports gods hate you and to make them want to make you miserable. And credit to the sports gods because they did. There is no crueler way to lose a trophy when you haven't won a trophy in 70 some odd years or however long it's been than to miss 3 consecutive penalties.
Well, and I can also say, is there anything worse than watching another country celebrate championship in your stadium.
Oh,
I mean, this isn't just like
because
this isn't like the other team. Like if the Suns win on the road, yeah, that is what it is. When an entire country gets to celebrate in your home stadium, that's awful.
And that's why it's worse, because now it's 100% of the populace is upset about this outcome, right? If you're, you may be a Suns fan, you may not be, you may even be living in Phoenix, but are from somewhere else. So you like the Lakers or the Pistons or whoever you like. This is your country. Everybody's on the same side. You're in your country, and you got these Italian folk that are celebrating, not only celebrating, but to take the "it's coming home," which I don't really understand. Like, is that because they invented football? Because like no other trophies have come home in an awfully long time. They're like, it's coming home, like it's never been there. Then the one Italian guy like grabs the camera, he's like, it's coming Rome, and I'm like, it's not exactly English, but I like what you tried to do there. And then they put on social media like they crossed out the H and they wrote it an R.
It's good.
I'm like, you're just asking for it. You're just getting it thrown right back into your face, and you kind of deserve it.
Now, a question: do you think the Italians would have acted any differently had the event been held in Italy? Are you suggesting that the English were the only that may have been a bit boorish?
No, not at all. But the English were the ones who had the match at home, and so therefore the impetus was on them.
Where does that rank, by the way, in terms of great sporting days? Doing a Wimbledon men's final in the morning with one of the greatest tennis players in a decent match because he lost the first set, followed by, let's be quite honest, a pretty exciting, a really exciting Euro final. Where does that, because that's up there.
I mean, it might even be number one if you think about the rarity of it occurring. Like, think about what has to occur. One, you have to have the major soccer tournament in your country, and that's predetermined years and years in advance. And then you have to make it to the final. And then the time of that final has to be different than the time. Like, to be able to go to both of those in one day, I mean, that is an aligning of fates. I mean, that might be a Wimbledon final and a major soccer championship final in the same day, being able to attend both of those matches. That might be number one.
What would have to come? What would have to come in the middle? What is there anything that could have been squeezed in the middle?
I mean, maybe there would be like a Great Britain Olympic tune-up for a basketball game, and maybe like the Americans were over there. Like, if you popped, hey, real quick, between these two sporting events, I want to pop in and see KD. Here, KD's going to go to town on some guys from Leicester. Like, you pop in and watch that scrimmage as like an appetizer for the soccer that night. That might be
the only real available. The only real available entree would have been to literally jump on a plane or in the channel, get over to France, watch a bit of the Tour de France, like watch a finishing of that stage, and then return. You did have a big window. You had a big window there. No, I guess you didn't have nearly as
like maybe, and you'd have to finagle the calendar a little bit for this. But this weekend is the Open Championship, the golf major, and it's being played in England. So if that was if that was slid.
Just watch a couple holes
in the calendar, and then you go and pop in on Sunday of the major. But they never do the Open, by the way. Yeah. That would end around 4:00 local time. That is usually when the winner. Probably between 4 and 6.
They'd never put the Open and Wimbledon in the same time. But at any rate, it's a
but you could see Wimbledon end. You could see the last couple holes of the golf, and then you could still probably catch the vast majority of the football.
Yes. But I would say Wimbledon, Euro Cup final. That's about, I mean, basically you'd have to go to a World Cup to up the ante on that. And that's about as good as you're going to get.
But even then, like, you're not going to get another major sports final on that day. I mean, the World Cup final is essentially the rest of the sports world says, well, we don't do anything this day. It's the World Cup
they're not going to schedule it. They're not going to do it the same day as Wimbledon. They're not going to do it. It lined up. Congrats to Kate for having that wonderful experience. What if she's not a sports fan? What if she's like, she's like, oh, I cannot believe I have to sit through. It's going to extra time. Like, that's the reaction I wanted to see. They're doing.
Do they not know Too Hot to Handle is on?
They didn't do extra time over in South America. They figured it out. Why are we doing extra time? Like, I would have liked to see that.
Are you pro extra time and shootout, or do you think it should just go straight 90-minute shootout, or do you believe, as I believe, that you should have it should be NHL style rules where you should just keep playing until someone scores and damn the torpedoes?
No, I think So I've now seen a bunch of arguments on this. And as a soccer parent, as someone who likes to go home every now and then, I'm all for the shootout.
Oh,
like,
yes,
and
of course, for
I like the
12-year-olds. But
well,
if
no,
I'm
they don't
watching
do it 12-year-olds. They don't do it yet because they just.
If
play
I'm
with
watching
ties.
a major championship final between highly trained professional athletes, keep playing.
No,
keep
I don't
playing
want to
until
see.
someone
I don't
wins.
want to. No, because I don't want to. I don't. That's like what was the tennis match? What's our? Oh, so it's like 7 days in hell.
Mhm. Yes, it is. And we're still talking about it now. And it didn't even actually happen. This has always been my argument for just keep playing. You are going to have something legendary occur at some point.
Yeah, someone's going to die. That's what someone's going to have a heart attack. That's what's going to happen.
You got to finagle the rules to allow more substitutions or take people off the pitch at certain intervals or whatever.
Here's why I don't think it's a good idea. By the way, what I think they should do is that you play until someone wins, but they keep doing it in 30. So what if it's like 4 days into it and someone finally scores and they're like, yeah, but you still have 18 minutes to play and the other team scored.
I like that. There's something to that too, where you would just take longer breaks in between the periods.
No, you've already said this. You enjoyed the golden goal when we went. By the way, these were two great matches. Neither of them, and I want to get this on record. I would say the Copa America was fantastic. I think the final was unbelievable. The Brazil-Argentina final was fantastic. And the Euro Cup was fantastic, right? Neither of them were as good as the greatest soccer match ever played, which we attended, which of course was DC United, NYCFC, goal scored in the final moment right in front of us. Greatest soccer game in history. Well, we established that.
But that's because we weren't invited to the other two. Had we been invited, that would then take up the mantle as greatest soccer match ever played. And let that be a lesson to all of you that are organizing major sports tournaments out there. If you want your event to be the biggest and best of all time, there's only one phone call you have to make, and it's to the two of us. And we will be there, by the way. We are not picky. We will be there. And look, we will accept business class airfare, right? We don't need a PJ. We don't need first class. We'll take a business class ticket to come to your event. That's fine. 4-star hotel is okay. If you can't get us in the Sofitel, like that's fine.
No, and by the way, and we're not going to care. We don't care how much you spend on it. If you want to get it on Hotwire, we don't care. If you
we actually prefer that. We'd like to be part of that process though, where you hit the button and then we see what we get.
That's very true.
We would be fine with that. We do ask though, if it's a 3-star hotel or below, that we do be put on the premium floor. That is a perk that the hosts of Sportish
How weird would it be if someone wanted to fly us to an event and they were like, oh, we're going to book you a hotel. We'd be like, no. Could we zoom this in? What we'd like you to do is to get on Hotwire and let us watch. We want to watch you gamble on our hotel. They're like, yeah, we're going to we put everyone up in the Hilton. Like, no need for that. Here's what we'd like you to do. We're like, no, we'd like to be in the garden part of town. Yes, click that area.
We've been over the fact that Hotwire now basically tells you the hotel that you're going to get.
It's too easy. And it's not fun. It's if you can see a picture of what the actual hotel looks like, it's no longer fun.
Because I actually think that they have created now a market inefficiency where we could start a rival website. And what I would do is I would fully unload on the gambling aspect of it, where I would no longer break hotels down by class or category. I would throw everything in on one, and it's $100, and you press that button. And who knows what it's going to be? It could be a tent in the woods. It could be a night at the Four Seasons. Like that is real vacation living.
Yeah, that's true. It could be. It's all the way from the Hojo up to the Ritz-Carlton. That's what we're talking about. It takes a real brand of human to follow through on that. It takes, especially if you're betting your entire family vacation.
Well, I would actually like to see that model for entire vacations, where it's like different reels where you put down a certain amount of money. We'll call it $500 for the sake of argument. And you press the first button for destination. And what are we going to get? Is it going to be Vegas?
It's like,
is it going to be
the Guy Fieri cooking show. It's like, what's your protein?
Yes.
You've got 30 minutes. It's exactly a great idea. Oh my God. It is press your luck vacation.
Yeah. And I mean, you got your Orlandos and your Los Angeleses and your whatever all lumped in there with your Des Moines and your Flint, Michigans. Apologies if you happen to live in those places, but let's be honest, they're not that great. Like, imagine the reaction of the kid's face when you hit the destination wheel, and instead of like Disney World, you get like world's biggest ball of yarn.
What? You know where that gets really dicey? When you do that international. You're like,
yes.
Excuse me, is the Civil War still happening there? Is that over?
I mean, this is great. It could be everything from the airfare, from the way you travel there.
I think
it's the hotel that you stay, to the food that you eat.
I think you literally I like your idea that you go all in. It's like vacations are us. You there's a certain amount and you make it low enough that it makes sense.
Yep.
Right. And you literally are like, I'm going for 5 days. Hit me up. I got X number of bodies. Hit me up. And it just rolls you through. That's a great idea. But again, takes a very special kind of person and a very strong relationship. I mean, imagine that for honeymoon.
Honeymoons. Oh boy. I mean, honestly, the entire wedding, at least the entire wedding reception, should just be that game. And that should be it. You should you send in the professional host, you send in the game show accoutrement, and that is your wedding reception.
Yeah. All right. So are we gonna talk about the what are we talking about, the NBA?
No, so I was going to have a nice segue, and the segue that I was going to use is one place you wouldn't be going is Tokyo for the Olympics, because they're not allowing spectators in because of COVID-19, despite the fact that, as we've noted on this show for the last 2 months, pandemic's over. But in Tokyo, they're still saying you can't go and watch the Olympics. Do you think that the Tokyo Olympics, Keith, because there can be no spectators, because numbers in Japan have said that 80% of people in that nation do not want the Olympics to be happening. Right. Can these Olympics be considered a success? Like, is there any way that they can go where people go, great Olympic Games?
No, of course not. I mean, I think, well, look, someone's going to call them a success at the end of this.
The chairman of the IOC at the end, right?
Well, not only that, it's the greatest games ever. At the head of the IOC will say that, and at the end of this thing, NBC will roll, which you'll have to pay for extra on Peacock, of course, because it's
yes, she will.
They're killing us here. All right. They're going to roll a reel that says, despite all the challenges, and it's going to be an emotional roller coaster, and you're going to have Simone Biles with, pumping her fist, and you're going to have apparently the Nigerian basketball team that's holding up the gold medal, because they're going to be like, yeah. And they are going to do an ode to America and all that we've overcome. And they will position this as a success. Who will not see this as a success is the Japanese populace, whose taxes are about to go through the roof because their last revenue source just went out the window. And by the way, with that, they took the sponsors with them. I mean, this is going to be an economic bloodbath. If they thought they didn't want it because of the COVID, just wait till they see the bill. Like, that's going to be the worst part. So,
speaking of economic bloodbaths,
you went to this pretty early. You didn't even want to you didn't even want to be like, hey, the American basketball team, they've lost a couple.
No, you know why? Because I guarantee you they win every game in Tokyo by 20 or more.
I'm exactly right. Everyone's like, oh, what's happening? I'm like, you know what's happening? They don't care.
At all. Not even a little bit.
I mean, the lack of effort, I liked how they asked when Popovich, they're like, when they finally won a game, they beat Argentina. He's like, well, that was better. He's like, I cannot believe these guys are NBA athletes. Like, yes, they're going to win. So we know that. So you're going to skip right over that. You're also going to skip over the fact that everyone in baseball is furious because they're going to change all the rules. And now people aren't going to be able to shift probably eventually. And I don't even understand the shift anyway, to be quite honest.
So you get two choices right now, Keith Strudler. You get two choices. I will explain to you right now about the shift, why they use it and why they want to ban it, or we could talk about Too Hot to Handle, which is how we spent our sports hiatus over the last week.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't stay up till midnight last night learning about the sports shift, so we better go with the strength. I was up late cranking out the final episodes.
Sportish's favorite TV show is Netflix Too Hot to Handle.
Yeah.
We did, and you can scroll back through the archives, somewhere around our first or second week of this show's existence, a 45-minute recap, deep dive into our thoughts on the first season of Too Hot to Handle. Now season 2 is out. Keith and I have both binged all of it. If you have not yet watched Too Hot to Handle, stop watching Sportish immediately. Stop listening. Turn off the television, close your podcast app, because nothing that is going to be said from this point forward will allow you to enjoy Too Hot to Handle if you haven't yet seen it. Also, if you haven't yet seen Too Hot to Handle, shame on you. Absolutely shame on you, because this is the height of American culture. If you are unfamiliar with this show, it brings sexy singles from across the world, a true international buffet of singles together on a tropical island where they believe they're attending a reality show where their jobs are to party, drink, and hook up. They get
5 men, 5 women as our starting block, and they parade them into this luxurious resort one by one, ravenous, if you will, ready to attack each other.
Yes, for delights of the flesh. And they are told
12
hours.
Was it that far?
Into their trip, they are very quickly told that they are on a show called Too Hot to Handle, which is on its surface trying to teach them how to have deep, meaningful relationships, but really is just for us to laugh at how much money they lose when they hook up with each other, because the rules of Too Hot to Handle are every time you do anything of a hookup nature, from kissing to having sex with another castmate, you lose a certain amount of money, which they do not know this fee structure. You lose a certain amount of money from a group pot of $100,000. So if no one touches each other for the duration of Too Hot to Handle, every person makes 10 grand. What ensues in between them being told that they're not allowed to basically have any sort of contact with each other at all, and when the show ends and they're supposed to form deep, meaningful relationships, is that we spend 7-ish episodes laughing at how they're not able to keep their hands off each other, while also putting together this like economic puzzle of, well, wait, that's only $2,000, but this is $5,000. And if you think about the point of diminishing returns, then they should really at this point just all be having an orgy. And so that is the show that Keith Strudler and I have been locked into over the last week. It was a great season. But the problems that I have with the show, Keith, the problems that I had with season 1,
I know it's the pricing.
Remain in season 2.
No,
they remain.
Your problem is you have 2 problems. One is it's not enough money to keep people, to prevent people, because once you get your 10 people, and by the way, a few extra caveats. There is a Siri-like character, which is basically represented by an electronic cone, right? Like you'd have in your house, right? And this character is named Lana. Lana is guiding them through this retreat, giving them instructions. Lana plans parties. Lana rewards people with dates when they act well. Lana punishes people. Lana also, and the casting, directors also bring in some grenades throughout. So while it starts with 10, no one is safe. They bring in sexy singles halfway through, and to throw a wrench, even when they think they've got this all worked out, they bring in new people. It gets crazy by the end. Now, so your first problem is, and I will refute this. Your first problem is that $100,000 split 10 ways, although that's not how it worked this time. That's not, spoiler alert, it was not given. It's not split equally. It doesn't
matter because they think it is. So it doesn't matter whether it is or isn't in the end. They think it is, so it's not enough.
So you think that 10,000 each is certainly not enough to deny them the pleasures of the flesh sitting right in front of them. And they have all. By the way, I will also say, if you have not watched any of these episodes, apparently when they were packing, they were only told to pack dental floss, because that apparently is all.
And did you notice that in men's fashion now there's an epidemic of paisley? Why is every guy on the show wearing paisley?
I don't know, but the short. They at least have at least something is left to the imagination. Although I don't believe I saw a shirt the entire time. And by the way, which left, I'm going to go out. Apologies for Chase was a bit of a disadvantage. There were a lot of six packs. The one person I expected to be a little more chiseled, the single professional athlete on the show, seemed to be carrying. I understand you got to have a little padding to get hit. He did seem to have a little bit more in that part of the carriage. That said, so everyone's semi-naked. So you think $100,000 is not enough. I think it's exactly the right amount. See, if you went too high,
I disagree with you because like Joey said in the reunion show, the food was the best part. And by food, he means free alcohol. That booze is flowing, right? It's going to happen. And not only is it going to happen, once it does, there's going to be someone who really needs that $100,000 per person or whatever the number it should be. And they're going to have a much stronger reaction than what you get on this show when you find out that somebody just lost $19,000 because they made out for an hour and a half. You are going to find out that someone is really, really upset with the fact that these other two people couldn't keep their hands off each other to the point where we're going to start blending like Fight Club and Too Hot to Handle together. And they're going to have to go into like some cage somewhere.
I know what you
truly slug
I know what you want. You want a guy literally peeling someone off another body. That's what you
absolutely correct. I want a guy who's so dedicated to making sure no one touches each other that he doesn't sleep in the communal beds that they all have to sleep in. He's sitting in that one lonely chair in the corner holding like a coconut, just waiting to huck it at someone so they can't keep their hands off each other.
That's the worst part of this. Most of the infractions happen literally in the middle of the night in a bedroom that they're all sharing. And then they'll wake up, they'll be like, did anyone hear anything last night? So, and my favorite part of the show. So I think having that little cash is enough that it really encourages people to break the rules. And that's the most fun of when they are considering how far to go. I think you make that prize pot too high and all of a sudden they're now playing it for money. My favorite part of the show though, we had a major infraction. This is the first time we've had this major infraction. And by the way, and then I'll get to the second thing we went the distance and someone broke this. Now, Cam, so we had a couple, Marvin, Eminem, Marvin and is that Melinda?
Melinda, yeah.
Marvin and Melinda, they've been a couple almost since the beginning. It seemed like this was really
which, by the way, was 3 weeks ago. This show lasts about 3 weeks, and these people act like they've been together for 12 years.
Well, that's the intensity of the moment. It is dog years. Too Hot to Handle is dog years. All right, so so they reveal in the morning, guys. We had sex. Now, by the way, we had sex in front of all of you in the middle of the night.
Correct. Yes.
Which I'm still having a hard time truly figuring out. Cam, who is also somewhat of a cad, right, and has broken many rules. He's broken many rules, and he was one of the first rule breakers. He literally looks over at Marvin and Melinda, and he goes, "You are so selfish." That's my favorite line.
Correct.
So that was wonderful. So the other thing that you don't like is not that there's not enough money, but that the way that they levy these fines is inconsistent.
Makes no sense.
So we had
the economy is all incorrect. The economy of Too Hot to Handle does not make sense.
No, I will say I know where your problem comes. All right, 3,000 is a kiss. Correct. You have a problem with that?
Honestly, I feel like that is the one fair number. And that could just be because that's the first fine you learn about. So when you watch this show, you're like, all right, a kiss is $3,000. And so I feel like that sets the baseline. So I'm okay with the kiss being $3,000 if we're setting that as the baseline.
How are you with 20,000 as the big show?
Honestly, also seems kind of fair. I do think it should maybe be a little higher, maybe 25.
Higher? Oh boy.
I think maybe a little higher. But I'm okay with 20.
I mean, can we at least concede that when it's a $20,000 infraction done quietly, secretly under the covers in front of 8 of your best friends, it may not be the full Monty experience you might like. Like it's kind of a modified.
Yeah.
It's very.
I'm fair with that because of the scenario. It can't be that good. So okay, I'll accept.
Very, for lack of better, very workmanlike at that point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
For fun,
running away from that bear.
The problems you're running into now. 5,000 seems to be a one-way gratification of one person to another using only.
Yes, correct. Yes, but it is a one person's gratification, but it is a two-person act. If you can read between the lines of what our audience of one will allow us to get past the censors on this show. Yes, that is a $5,000 fine.
Now, for $1,000 less, $4,000, it is the same form of act without a completion. That we found out.
Yes.
That
correct.
One. Now, where you're going to have an issue.
This is where I have an issue.
Cam early on in the show realized that he just wasn't going to make it. Uh-huh. Cam said, and one of I think the greatest moments of television, Cam said, "Look, I'm going to have to take care of some business myself."
Yes.
So he found two of his best friends. I believe that was Sneaky Pete and Nate, if I'm not correct, if I have that correct. Those two of his buddies. Sneaky Pete, of course, was exiled early on. He said, "Could you please guard the shower, the area, the house, and so while I take care of my own business." Now, of course, Marvin walked in and said, "Hey, I need to get in." The only thing they could think of was that there was an odor.
Right.
And Pete said, "Trust me, I only need 1 minute." Or not. Cam said, "I only need one." Yeah. Of course, Lana called everyone back. To the next morning and said, and everyone thought, because everyone but Cam, we assumed these infractions were coming in at least pairs, if not threes and fours. Mm-hmm. We assumed, since everyone else said, "Oh, well, we're all good. We didn't break any rules." Oh no. The rings, it's revealed that Cam has committed an infraction of 1. We expected that bill to be quite high.
We did.
It's certainly higher than a kiss.
Has to be.
$2,000.
$2,000.
At which point, Jeff and I both said, is the strategy now not that everyone just hides from each other and pleasures themselves?
You left out in that perfect description of one of the greatest scenes in television history, what I consider to be the best line in the history of television. And it's not Cam saying, "You are so selfish." It's when Cam tells Nate and Pete what he needs to do, that Nate nods knowingly and goes, "Like an investment." He goes, "Yes, I understand. You're going to have to spend some money, but really, we're spending money to make money. I get it, man. You're like Goldman Sachs over here." That was the best line in television history. If you haven't yet watched Too Hot to Handle, what you do is after you check out ftfnext.com, catch your old episodes of Sportish, you open up your Spotify or your Apple Podcasts and you listen to your old episodes of Sportish, go to Netflix, watch Too Hot to Handle, because we're probably going to talk more about it on our next episode. But for now, that's all the time we got. So for Dr. Keith Strudler, my name is Geoff Brault. Thanks for hanging out with us on For the Fans. Thanks for finding us whenever the heck this was on. And we'll see you next week if you roll the dice and get lucky again. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Sportish. See you next time.